If everyone can raise to your feet and give Dan Flynn from Thank You a nice warm welcome to the EC stage. Who has purchased, used on their body, eaten, done something with a Thank You product once in their lifetime? Okay, we're kind of done.
Wow.
Yeah.
That never used to happen, by the way. That was, people like, what's Thank You? That is awesome.
So you know the products. What do people buy the most? Just yell out the things that you buy and love from Thank You. Nappies, cool. Soap, great. Water, cool. Often when you reach for this stuff in Woolies or Coles, and that's a story in itself that we might get to, you understand that there's some social good to it, but you sometimes wonder what's the story behind it. So today we're going to lean into that story behind the product that you keep buying, but then lean into a whole bunch of things that Thank You is passionate about. You would have seen on your seats, Thank You is now going into schools to do school sessions to talk about social justice and entrepreneurship, and we'll get into that as well. But Dan is a good friend, and it's been so exciting to watch Thank You grow over the years. But Dan, let's just lean into, tell us a bit more about Thank You, perhaps some things you might want to touch on, maybe some points in time, some chapters that kind of jump out to you, but tell us a bit about Thank You.
Well, first of all, it is honestly for our team, for myself, such a humbling moment to have so many people part of Thank You in some way. And you know, it's always interesting to us how people get involved with Thank You. Some people buy the product, know nothing about the cause, just like the product. Other people hear about the cause and that's how they kind of join what we're building. But for me, it's a really simple idea. It's a really simple idea that we are probably all more powerful than we realize we are, particularly when we combine the little we all have. And that's the story of Thank You. So we started with a bottle of water and it's now gone into 55 products. And we give 100% of our profits to helping end extreme poverty. There's a big global focus, working in 22 countries around the world, but also a local focus in Australia and then soon New Zealand. As if you're following our story, we've just launched into New Zealand. So what we do is we make product and we give the profit. I think that what's really behind Thank You is the how it's come about, and it's really about people and a lot of people. One of, if we talk about chapters or moments in our journey, one of the great challenges to our idea is that we thought it would be easy, but it turns out it's not. To start product companies up against big brands, it's really, really challenging. And we were 19 when we started, Justine and Jared and I. And
What was your job when you started as a 19-year-old? Can you remember?
Yeah, well, I was a traffic controller, so the people that hold the stop slow back. And it was actually not too far from here, and everyone would drive past and they honk and they laugh at you. We were getting paid $65 an hour. Just a thought. I know, don't change your job, but don't. It is mind-blowing. It was night shift. But so we're doing that, and on those night shifts, like Jared and I, we had that job, we were just dreaming. So we're getting paid, but we're also dreaming about what could this Thank You thing look like, and we're doing probably 30 to 50 hours a week volunteering, which we thought would last for maybe 2 months. That 2 months turned into 3 years. And for the first 3 years, we couldn't get any national retailer on board. In fact, for 5 years, we couldn't get the 2 biggest supermarkets on board. So if you've bought our products in Coles or Woolworths, that moment of getting them on board probably sums up to me the power of Thank You.
Tell us about the day that kind of all peaked, the moment of getting into Woolies and Coles, because that's not just some nice meetings and hopefully getting a pitch across. You went pretty radical on that one.
We did. And for 5 years, we tried the nice meeting approach. So we tried following the rules and the system. Book a meeting, present, they say yes, and then you get national awareness and hopefully your product sells. So that's kind of convention. We flipped it after 5 years of them saying no. We launched a video on YouTube. We called it the Coles and Woolworths campaign. Yeah, and that was very controversial. And we launched this thing and we asked people to upload a post onto the Coles and Woolies Facebook page to say if they stocked the Thank You products that you'd buy them. And during the campaign, it went wild. One media outlet was like, you can't put the 2 biggest supermarkets who hate each other in the same sentence. And my response was awkward, but I'm like, oh, Wesley, our graphic designer, he didn't find it too hard. And it's a dumb answer, but it shows maybe the naivety or the boldness and the simplicity of you can't do it until you can. And during the campaign, we've actually got 2 photos, which we might chuck up, of these okay, so we flew this literally over Fed Square. Hey, Coles, thank you for changing the world, in brackets if you say yes, because we hadn't met yet. And that flew over Melbourne and around the head office for half an hour. And then the next slide has Woolworths. They got a helicopter too. So you're probably now going, I know which kid in my class he is. And we went on this journey, but Peter and Jeff, the pilots, they flew for free. School kids petitioned, they sung songs, they danced, they rapped. People collected, media covered it, and then they arranged it, and the rest is kind of history. One of you mentioned the hand wash, but that's ranked right now number 1, number 2, and number 4 hand wash in Australia. Grocery. Nice. That's
awesome.
Crazy. Yeah.
And I think there's so many lessons we'll draw out from this next 15 minutes we have together with Dan. But one for me is there's a big line that I think we should foster with our young people, which is end your apprenticeship. There's this feeling of, I'll finish high school and then I'll go to university or TAFE and then I'll do this course and maybe then I'll be an entrepreneur or an inventor or an artist once I've done all this stuff. But actually these guys, when they were sitting there as, with stop and go signs, late on the nights of Melbourne streets, they were thinking, let's do it now. Let's not do an MBA, let's just get into it immediately. One thing I love is they thought of their first 2 titles in the company. And they thought, well, we need a CEO, so one of us should be the CEO. And there's all this paperwork. So one of us should be CDO, which is Chief Documents Officer. So that was their formal, the next person in the company. But Dan, you're an interesting mix. You're a social entrepreneur. You care about the world, and your entire team cares about the world and making a difference, and your founding team with your wife as well, Justine. But you're going about it as a business. You don't make profits personally from it. So you're using a business model to get a social outcome. So you've got a social mind and you've got a business mind. Where does that come from? Did that come from your parents? Did it come from school? Did it come from your church? Where's that been planted in your head?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like at school, I was the kid running around the schoolyard selling anything. So Gobstoppers when they were in. We had, this one's really bad, but pet yabbies, which is so bad. Now on reflection, we'd catch them in the lake. It's really bad. I'm so sorry, but...
The wildlife guys in the corner there. So
I shouldn't have mentioned that. I feel bad, but it was just this entrepreneurial thinking, and I actually, to be honest, even in my teenage years, I was so focused on money, business. If you're not a millionaire by 21, you're a failure. Read that in a book somewhere, but it was just like locked onto that. I'd sponsored a child through World Vision in my teenage years, and I actually thought that was a pretty good effort. But I've ticked a box. But that probably did open a door, and probably my message in this is like little things can open a door. Justine, she was very different to me. She, at a school event, I think it was World Vision, came and she just was so inspired. She went to one of the forums and then she ended up going to the field with a couple of different organizations in her teenage years. So she was literally the girl who's like, I'm all about helping end global poverty. For me at 19, it wasn't until I had a moment that kind of switched and go, well, we've got extreme poverty, kids dying today, and extreme consumerism. This doesn't make sense. Why don't we combine the two and change this reality? And then it's so in line with what she's thinking. So my long answer is little moments triggered it. My parents, I grew up in church, so there's very much an outward view on help people. That's a good thing. So I definitely give them credit for it. But moments have really led us to this spot.
And there may not be, but was there a teacher or someone who was involved in your life that made a difference to you, that told you things were possible, that gave you a new confidence? Is there someone, if you think back to your school, is there a teacher that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, there is. We probably all have that teacher, maybe, but we had our book launch for Thank You. We had about 900 people at this launch night, and it was this huge launch in Melbourne. And I didn't know that this teacher was coming, but he turned up. And as soon as I saw him, about a metre away, I choked up. Because his name's Mr. Venner, or Steve, but I'd never say that, Mr. Venner. And he, what he did was he just went a little bit extra. So I was the kid at school who spent a little bit of time in detention, a little bit of time in the principal's office. But he was willing to basically give up some lunchtimes, and he kind of pulled me aside and we'd work on some stuff. And in hindsight, he actually went above his role, I think, and he invested in me. And he did say things like, "I really believe in you." And he once said, "I'm really disappointed that you did that." And that was like, no. Like, and I did the wrong thing. But the way he said it, and because he was caring, going above, like, I still remember this to that day. So I look at him and one other teacher, Mrs. Newbold, as real pivotal in believing in a kid who probably, if I didn't get that, it'd be a different story. So
You became a father a few years ago now.
Yeah.
You've built your company has built an entire product line that is perhaps inspired by some of that journey. But little Jed is now 3 years old.
Yeah.
And so in a couple of years, he'll be going to a primary school, and then a few years after that, a high school. When you think about his schooling, and you think about the world that he is moving into, and you think about the man and the global citizen that you want him to be, what do you hope his teachers and his schools provide for him?
Wow. He started kinder like 3-4 weeks ago, and on his first day he got home and Justine said, "How's your day?" And he said, "Good." And then he told her that he took 9 apples during snack time and snuck them into his bag. One for mum, one for dad. And we're like, oh no. So like, we've got some work to do as parents. He thought he was helping, but I hope, Rosie talking about Project Rocket. So as a kid, I was bullied so hard at school, and I'm still probably working through that now. Like, I'm realizing that, wow. And there was such a hiding of who I was and who I am, and this, you've got to fit the mold to fit in, instead of that truly embracing the uniqueness that we all are. Like, I heard a speaker once say the most powerful person we can be in the whole world is you, like yourself. And the best speakers on the planet, the best leaders, entrepreneurs, business people, artists are themselves. It's the ones that try and be others, that's where it falls apart. So for me, it's like creating environments that really champion, discipline stealing apples, that is bad, but champion the uniqueness in every kid. And then I think too, probably encourage, just some unconventional thinking, because I think our world's got some pretty tough challenges, and it's going to take unconventional thinking, which is a mixture of what we can learn from history and an ability to embrace future. So it's a balance of both. But yeah.
Tell me about this thing. School sessions by Thank You. Why this? You're investing real money, real team, real manpower and women power into this idea. Tell us about the school sessions.
Yeah. It's funny, we kind of go around the boardroom on this one, because as a business, it's like, well, hey, what are we doing from one side of the ledger? But from the other side, this is very personal for Justine, for myself, for our team, because we're like, if we just knew what we knew now then, man, that would help. Like, I started this journey at 19 years old, but imagine if we could get that thinking around entrepreneurial thinking, around unconventional thinking, about social change, about entrepreneurship, which is very well celebrated, but really uncovering social entrepreneurship and celebrate that and show the journey. Like, this is very close to our heart, and we've loved it. Speaking in schools around the country, for myself, for our team that get out and speak, there's like 8 sessions we run and stuff, but it's a passion. And I think the bigger impact that Thank You will have, that we can't measure, won't be, we can measure, we've helped 785,000 people get access to our programming. That's in developing countries. That's measurable. The unmeasurable stuff is that kid who sits there and goes, cool, I'm going to change my thinking, or I'm going to change my trajectory. And that is, you can't measure it, but that's going to change the world, even beyond what Thank You can do.
Your organisation is growing, has been growing for years, will continue to grow. Where are you now as a leader? What kind of leader are you now with a large team as part of this movement? What's your leadership style now in 2018?
It's a really interesting question because we are on a journey at Thank You of scaling, and we're at 55 staff and scaling in new countries and new markets. And we're actually at quite a confronting, even personally, quite a confronting part in our journey where I'm actually going, wow, I cannot afford as a leader to do what I'm not really good at. And I need to focus on what I'm really good at. And we need each person in our team focusing on what we're really good at. When you're a startup, you can be chief of documents and this, you can do it all. But actually, as things scale, you actually have to learn what is that unique imprint you've got, that unique print that no one else can leave. So for me, I am probably really honing in on that and putting more focus into kind of where we're heading. So the expansion of Thank You and pioneering. And that's really positive. The flip of that is I'm not as responsible and focused on the day-to-day management. Turns out it's not my strength at all. And that's okay. Like, it's realizing what are we good at. That start with nothing, let's create and go again. New Zealand, we've just done it and we're off to a really flying start. So I think as a leader, one of my roles is to step back more and more. And that's hard actually, but important.
What's actually, who has bought a copy of this book and read it? Great. How much did you pay for it? Who's willing to yell out what they paid for it? $20, good. Because you can pay what you want for this book. It's a really radical business model they put out. A lot of people write books. A lot of books don't sell. How many copies of this have gone into the hands of Australians?
I think we're at 125,000.
Which is huge. Awesome. There's a couple of copies back there, and again, you pay what you want, but tell us about this project. Tell us about the courage to put your words into this and get it out there.
Thank You, there's two parts to this. One, we have a flawed business model. So the flaw is we give our profits away. That sounds cool, but it means we don't have money to scale and grow. And that's a challenge. We thought we'd overcome the challenge by throwing it again to people. So those people in this room that put up their hand have literally helped fund our launch into New Zealand. So this was a crowdfunding campaign. Now, it was also in line with probably the schools program. The bigger impact that we'll never have is what people do once they go, okay, that's their story. What can I do? And we're always trying to think unconventionally and push the boundaries. So pay what you want. Literally, some people in Australia have paid 5 cents. And we have addresses for them. It's happened. The most paid was 5,000, then 7.5, then 10. It's now $50,000. One lady, she was an online order, and I wrote back, "Are you sure?" and the book is not that good, but it's this idea that we can change the world, and I think this to me sums up Thank You. It sums up social enterprise, and it sums up the message pro for every student out there. When we launched the book, it looked like we did it the wrong way, but our research said there was no bestseller in Australia, America, Europe in that format, none. So we're like, that's cool. That's an opportunity. Anyway, so we changed the convention, right, in books. And when we changed it, someone asked how did you do it? And literally we hit rotate on the print file. So that's it. But we did it for two reasons. One, that book read in public, like on a plane or in the schoolyard, that's invisible. That book, that just cut through. Because what the heck are you doing? But then the other part was around making you feel uncomfortable on purpose. Because I think that's probably the other thing for Jed. He needs to learn, we all need to learn resilience, and that thing of getting out of your comfort zone and doing stuff you're not comfortable with. That's a metaphor for it. And I think there's probably more power in that than anything else.
Final question from me, and it's a tough one. You got a room full of educators. Some of these people might teach Jed one day. What's your and keep an eye on his apple stealing. What's a word of encouragement or support to a generation of Australian educators who are doing things for Aussie kids?
A lot of pressure with that question, but I think I was at a conference once and I gave this talk about Thank You. And I put this thought out there at the end. I'm like, what if we could each do something remarkable? And this guy at the back, he yelled out, "I'm going to quit my job." And the CEO was at the front and goes, "No, that's not the point of the session." And I'm like, wow, this is awkward. But I think what that person felt is often this sort of like, to change the world. Let's quit our job and go somewhere and build something. And that may be what you need to do. But my challenge, probably back to everyone in the room, is I've seen a story now for years. I mean, helicopter pilots who donated their time, kids who donated their time, people who've donated their money, their careers, used what's in their hand. And so I would just put it back to say, what's in your hand? Because what is in your hand as educators is your skill, your passion, and then the future. And we don't know the impact that one moment can have on a kid. We don't. We can think we do, but we truly don't. And if you don't have those moments, talk to someone else who's got them. Because there are so many kids here today because of people, teachers. There are so many organisation trajectories that have been changed because of people, because of teachers. So I think remarkable is the opportunity for all of us to literally invest in one, see where it goes. I don't think you have an easy job, by the way. So thank you for what you do. Anyway.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers.